it's an interesting point you make, and I've been thinking about this more because I've been hearing more mixes of big artists, including stuff that you're doing, that aren't quite as bright. And I really like that. And I think there's an era of mixing that young mixers did not come up in that they should check out, which is like that, like late 90s, early 2000s, like Rich Costey, some of the best Chad Blake stuff, Eric Valentine, a lot of these mixes that where the vocal is not hyped and yet sits really clearly in the mid-range around dense guitars and really mid-rangey drums, and everything feels mid-rangey. Or Mr. Brightside, for example, like these mixes
so good.
That aren't this like scooped heavy hip hop era mixing that's all mid-range, and yet the clarity is really brilliant. And I think a lot of people should go back and check those out. Like the first couple Muse albums, again, really any of the Eric Valentine stuff, like Songs for the Deaf, or the Good Charlotte stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of that Chad Blake, the Arctic Monkey stuff. Like there's so many of those era, Fiona Apple records. Like there's that I think that's all Rich Costey, or at least the first couple. There's an era of mid-range that is really powerful because it's a lot of like mid-range drum compression.
He's known for being really additive into compression and saturation, into de-essing.
Yes.
He's known to be boosting high amounts of volume into dynamic processing. And that's kind of how he gets that up against the glass energy, that just before it's too much thing.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. Like I used to study that and follow that. It's very much not my style. But understanding it when it's necessary.
Really well. They translate really well because, again, there's a lot of, even though we're getting to an era with a lot of systems that have bright high end and big low end and that sort of thing, when you're listening to something across the room, it's mid-range that comes out. So getting your mid-range right without too much hype, because I definitely will hear things like On at a Restaurant and hear like a record from 15 or 20 years ago that has a great mix and everything's clear and you can hear the vocal and you can hear the piano or the guitar. You know, you talk about like the cello frequencies. You could hear these from somewhere between 300 and 3K. Everything feels like it has its own place. And then you hear a modern mix and you just hear all the high end is just and you just don't hear clarity. So there's something about the mid-range that I don't know, I find really interesting. And again, back to the Kendrick album, it works really well. You hear a lot of piano, you hear a lot of strings. There's
no noise on that album. There's no unnecessary build up anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not really like all that. What you're talking about sounds like noise. It sounds like an EQ on a sound that there's nothing there already, and you're boosting nothing. And if everything is boosting high end, most sounds don't have that much high end, so you're just boosting noise lore. If you're using some sort of like Spectre, for example, that has like some saturation in there, you're boosting fakeness. You're boosting non-existent air that people like to call, I need some more air. It's like, that's not air. That's nothing. There's nothing in a guitar above 7K. Like there's nothing there. So filter it down and let there be space for everything else. And like, this is a very opinionated tone of voice and perspective. And I'm okay with that, because do it for yourself. Look at a guitar analyzer. If there's anything above there on a well-recorded electric guitar, distorted, by all means, boost more of it, but you won't see much above there. So get that out of the way. Give yourself headroom for things that are coming above there, like the vocal, like the hi-hat. I would argue you can even turn the hi-hat down to that much. The Kendrick hi-hats are not bright. The Pusha T hi-hats on his record, on his hip-hop focused records, are not bright. And then you go to the Jack Harlow record, and the hi-hats are fucking bright. And it's like, why the fuck are the hi-hats so bright? Like, I don't understand why the hi-hats need to be so bright on a hip-hop record. It's not, I don't know. Don't get it.
There's something that Bane
I can hate on
said
this
at one
for a
point.
long time. So the hi-hats thing is a weird one for me. Is hi-hats inherently are not bright. They're usually in the records that I think stand the test of time and have done extremely well for themselves. The hi-hats are thicker and have more length to them, more groove to them, and it's not about the ticky stuff. It's never been about that. So I don't know why all of a sudden they are about that.
Yeah, it's funny. A role model just
It's like a
said,
ring modulator or something.
he said, turn down all hi-hats, and then said, in fact, get rid of all hi-hats. I think something that Bain said at some point too. He said all the rough mixes from producers, the hi-hats are always too loud. Everybody always has the hi-hats too loud. I haven't really thought about that before, but it does make sense, and I'm sure that my hi-hats are too loud too. But it is interesting, and again, that's another element of high-end fatigue. If hi-hats are loud all the time, you just have this constant. It's just gonna.
And then your ears get used to it, and then think it's okay to leave them there, and that's what causes the demoitis of the hi-hats need to be stay as loud. So when the mixer, when Manny gets the Kendrick mix and the hi-hats are too loud, he gets to turn them down because he's Manny. But if it was someone else, they might be like, why are you doing that? Why did you turn my hi-hats down? It's like, well, don't you feel the groove bounce more without this like fucking demanding your attention? I can't even hear what the fucking rapper is saying about whatever is going on in their life. And like, hi-hats, sick. It's like, what? I don't understand. Everybody has their tweeter in their car stereo or their fucking phone or whatever system like turned up anyway. So the hi-hats are always going to be brighter later.
You're going to hear them. You're going to hear them.
You know what I mean? Actually, that's a really good, I haven't really thought about just that in general. You're going to hear them, so turn them down. They're the shortest length element of a record. The threshold of that ear is going to be crossed by that transient faster than almost everything else, but maybe a vocal consonant. So turn them down and let other things speak. Let's just fucking turn down the hi-hats.
Well, again, it gets to some of my favorite hi-hats in hip hop tend to be break beats or lo-fi things like Dirt Off Your Shoulder, where it's like the hi-hat is way pitched down, or like
and that shit goes in a club for the person that just said the sizzle is just right. Like, you know what I mean? No, that's not true. Dirt Off Your Shoulder goes harder than so many things in the club.
You know what? I'm going to make a parallel. Those Rich Costey Muse records and Dirt Off Your Shoulder, people should go listen to those back and forth and realize, okay, there's like a dark heaviness in the drums, and then the vocals get this clarity, and the whole record doesn't have to be super bright, and it translates everywhere and sounds huge on every system. Yeah, that's a fantastic. Or like Kanye Runaway or something like that, where huge low end that it's the Expo '83 Pete Rock CL Smooth sample that main classic drum break, where it's texture. Not super bright and so much density and so much low end, huge low end. It's just magical. I just want to make records.
If you put too much high end on a record like that, you ruin the bounce.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So boosting high end a lot of the time straightens out groove to the point where it's inhumane.
That's an interesting point. But boosting too much high end will lose the bounce of a groove for sure. Because then you're just, again, it's that static high end thing that you need to have dynamics in. Again, dynamics in almost every respect is what, again, going back to the Kendrick, is what makes this album so incredible, is that it's dynamics emotionally, dynamics sonically, dynamics frequency wise, dynamics instrument wise, topic wise.
Yeah.
Just absolutely fantastic.
Thanks for watching. Just a reminder, all of this content is free. There's no secret knowledge here. There's no Patreon. We don't read ads. We don't have sponsors. We're just trying to build a knowledge base. All that we ask in return is that you share it with somebody. Thanks so much.